Welcome. We're going to do a Speaking of Horses TV flashback. You know, this is the year 2022, but in 2007, 15 years ago, we got started by going to the John Wayne Centennial Celebration in Winterset, Iowa for what would have been John Wayne's 100th birthday, May of 2007. So we're going to do some flashbacks right now of some of the interviews that we were lucky enough to acquire while we were at the John Wayne Centennial. This first interview will be with singer Michael Martin Murphey. Let's watch a Speaking of Horses TV 15-year flashback.
Horses. Piranha! Oh no! Oh, the humanity! Oh, piranha.
They are our family, and we only want the best for them. No standing water means clean, good tasting, algae-free, mosquito-free, and virus-free water. No risk of electric shock, no risk of fire from faulty wiring. Cool water in the summer, warm water in the winter. Water delivered fresh from the water supply at 50 degrees year-round. Drinking post water.
Welcome to Speaking of Horses again. We're here at the John Wayne Centennial Celebration, and I still can't get over the fact that the Duke would be 100. It is just amazing to me. And I'm very honored to have as our guest right now, Mr. Michael Martin Murphey. Welcome.
Wayne, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
And it's just exciting to have all of these festivities for John Wayne's 100th birthday, and to have you here headlining these concerts. And just give us your take on this whole thing about John Wayne turning 100.
Well, first of all, the John Wayne family was here. Even Pilar, his widow, showed up, which shocked all of us yesterday. Wow. So 30 people in the John Wayne family were here on these grounds and out at the birthplace yesterday. The staying power and the influence of that man's life is amazing. And I think the kind of guy he was, it would have been amazing to him too. I think he would have been surprised. He was a fellow who stood up and spoke his mind, and sort of went against the grain, like only a few other entertainers have. And I really appreciated that event. My take on this is this event really does honor his memory. The people that I've met here on the grounds are all big John Wayne fans. All the performers are John Wayne fans, me included. And I've said this over and over again from the very beginning, that we're going to repeat this mantra. It's not about us, it's about John Wayne.
That's true.
This whole thing is about him.
That's true. There's an aura that kind of surrounds the event. And it's like, and you're right, he stood up for the things that he believed in, and he didn't worry about what other people thought about that. And we need some people doing that more today.
As the minister in our Cowboy Church pointed out this morning too, though, he also was able to admit his mistakes in front of the whole nation. And after he got cancer from smoking, or at least that's what we think it was, I mean, you can get cancer without smoking, he went on a national campaign and talked about the fact that people shouldn't smoke. Don't do as I've done. Don't smoke. And for a man who's the most popular movie star in the world to get up in front of people and say that was very honorable, and he was able to admit his mistakes and his flaws. Honestly, we really don't know for sure if it was cigarettes that caused his cancer. You know, every person who was on a certain movie, and I'm not sure which one it was that they shot in Nevada, was exposed to an atomic bomb test that they had at that time that was a dirty bomb, and every person who was on that set died of cancer. The only people who didn't die of cancer in that movie were the ones who were offset the day that they had that bomb test. Maureen O'Hara and Harry Carey Jr. were not there. They weren't on call that day. So it could be that he actually got the cancer from that. But instead, he used the fact that he had cancer to influence people to stop smoking Why? Because he knew that that was good for people.
Yeah, and he always seemed to have the best interest. What he deemed would be the best interest for people or the country at heart, even if it wasn't totally popular at the time.
Yeah, John Wayne didn't act like a mogul. In fact, he invested a lot of his money into some films that didn't make it toward the end because he still believed in making Westerns. And so he was not a wealthy movie star. He was comfortable, but he was not wealthy. He never had a museum in his name like Gene Autry did. And Gene Autry was a very successful businessman and left a lot of money to the museum and all his artifacts collection, which is a wonderful museum. Roy Rogers also had a museum, and he saved everything. He was a guy, I knew him, and he was a guy who saved everything he ever had. I mean, even the car he came from Ohio to California in. But John Wayne never had a museum. I don't think he ever thought about his legacy or honoring his name or anything like that himself. He was very humble that way. So we're here to raise money for a John Wayne museum, and I want to keep us all focused on the goal, that that's what we're here for, is to get John Wayne a museum, not only a museum of his artifacts, but it's also going to be called the John Wayne Learning Center. And from that learning center, we'll be able to pass on the heritage of what he stood for to our children, grandchildren, and beyond, many generations to come. That's the important thing here that we don't want to miss.
You know, and one thing you said about passing on, my youngest son is 24 in Indianapolis. Called me up about, it's been 6 months ago or so, before I knew I was even going to be here or be a part of this. And he said, Dad, you always watch those John Wayne movies. You're always into that stuff. He said, I just saw one called The War Wagon. He said, that was a good movie. And I said, you're going to catch on. You're going to eventually catch on. So here's a 24-year-old just discovering, you know, what he stood for in these movies.
Oh, my teenage girls watch all the movies. I have one girl who's a real movie buff, and she said, you know, that Red River, that black and white movie that John Wayne made called Red River, that's one of the best movies ever made. And again, you know, it's interesting to me the characters that he chose to play. You know, when you get powerful as a star, you can start picking the characters you want to play to best show off your acting ability. But instead, he went a little bit further than that. It didn't just show off his acting ability. He picked characters that had a message to convey to people. All of his characters in The Searchers, in Red River, pretty much every film that he made after he became a powerful star was always about a guy who was overcoming some kind of demons in his life. He was overcoming some flaw or some kind of problem that he had to overcome and turning his life around and doing the right thing. I mean, the ultimate one is Rooster Cogburn. You know, Rooster Cogburn's this tough, old, kind of run-down guy who's got a bad attitude, and he takes on this little girl and helping her out. And it's a wonderful story about a man who turns his life around. Toward the end of his life, he turns his life around. And I think John Wayne was thinking about that, that he had cancer. He was thinking about, gee, I'd like to use my life now to turn people around.
What I have left, I'm going to devote back.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, I appreciate you taking time to talk to us about this. Really glad to see you here and have you as part of this, headlining all these concerts.
And boy, did horses figure big into this thing or
Did
what?
they or
Boy,
did
we
they,
got some
right?
of the most incredible horses here on this event. And today we get to do our full show. And that's going up towards somewhere around 75 to 100 horses will be in the arena today.
Fantastic.
All wonderfully trained horses.
And I emceed the parade yesterday. A lot of you guys were in the parade. It was a fantastic shot, and between the stagecoaches and the wagons and the cowboys and everything else that's going to happen, including you in the Wild West show, this is just fantastic.
Let me just tell you what our rationale was. Our rationale was, as we designed this show, we said, if John Wayne were 100 years old and still living, and he were sitting in the stands, what show would we do for him?
Perfect.
That's what this show is designed to be.
Perfect. Michael, thank you. Thank you. And join us later on, Speaking of Horses.
We at Speaking of Horses are extremely pleased to have the Natural Vet as one of our sponsors. Natural Vet has been developing and helping horse people and horse products for many, many years, from bug check to help with bugs and intestinal problems to red cow to help fortify the horses, internal systems to all of the products to help your horse. Please check out The Natural Vet.